Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm Kat Hobson, your host. I guess that makes me the voice of Fate, right? I am so glad that you are joining us tonight because this is going to be a really fun and fascinating show. I'm very fortunate to be able to welcome Mark Anthony. He is billed as the psychic attorney. He's an Oxford-educated attorney. He actually is credentialed to argue cases before the U.S. Supreme Court, which is pretty special. Not just anybody can do that. He is a world-renowned psychic. I have seen his work. He is something else. I'm really impressed with his writing. He has got 2 books out, and they are so good. He deals with grief, kind of grief counseling. And I am so impressed with him. We are going to discuss those books. We're going to discuss him. And we are going to have some fun because, Mark, you have volunteered so graciously to do some free readings during the show. I think that's just wonderful of you.
Well, thank you, Kat. It's my pleasure, and it's such an honor to be on your show, and I'd like to thank you, and I would also like to thank all the listeners for tuning in.
Well, we have a good many of them already. So you have got such a fantastic fan base. I'm just always knocked out by that. I think you do. Your fans are just, they're legion. They really are.
Well, first off, I want to thank all the people that I guess consider themselves fans, and it's very humbling that when I go on tour across the U.S., wherever I go, people tell me, oh, like I heard John Fate Mag, or I heard John Coast to Coast, or, the several other shows. And, it's really nice to know that I'm able to be of service and that I'm able to help people who are coping with the loss of a loved one, or, that they like the various subjects that I lecture on, because it's not just grief. I also talk about quantum physics as the basis of spirit communication, the afterlife. I speak on various ancient mysteries and phenomenon. In fact, at the Edgar Cayce conference in last October was their Ancient Mysteries conference. It was an honor to present there the role of psychics behind the thrones of power throughout the centuries. So I've got several different topics I talk about, and it's really it's very touching to see how my words and my work are helping people in their journey, not just through life, but also through grief. So I'd really like to thank everybody for your support.
Well, I was very impressed because when my dad was going through hospice, Never Letting Go was there. And I think that's absolutely a wonderful option to have as far as understanding the process. And it helps. But your Evidence of Eternity is, I haven't finished it yet. I'm so sorry. But it is brilliant so far.
Well, thank you. I just finished the manuscript on my next book, and I'm talking to my literary agent about some various aspects of it before we get it ready to market. And the reason I wrote Never Letting Go is that after my mother died, I remember being very, very overwhelmed and upset about that. And for the people who aren't familiar with me or my background, both my parents were mediums. I was born into a family where this is a trait that runs on both sides of the family for generations. And I'm the first person to ever go public with it. I mean, my dad was a Navy SEAL and a NASA engineer, and my mom was a commercial illustrator and a fashion designer, and she'd actually been a model. She was a leg model because she had these beautiful legs. She was a dancer, and she used to be a leg model for stockings. So
well, that's neat.
Yeah, so we weren't these people with the neon sign in the window, come have fortune told them. That's totally not us. We're a mainstream America family, and but everybody in the neighborhood knew there was something different about that family because my parents and I could see spirits, and
right,
so
that would do it.
We're kind of like we're kind of like the Addams family, but not so whacked, I don't think.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, and so growing up in an environment where we'd see spirits and discuss it and talk about it, and it was very logical and open how we approached it. And then when my mother died, understandably, I was devastated. And it was about, it had to be about 2 weeks after she passed, and I was driving my car. I was coming back from court to go to my law office. And I was just overcome with one of those waves of grief that everybody who's lost a loved one knows exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I pulled over and I pulled into this parking lot, and I was just so upset, and tears were coming down my out of my eyes, down my face. And all of a sudden there was like this flash of light, and it went off in my head, I think, or it went off next to me, because I turned and looked in the passenger seat, and I saw my mom's profile for a second in this silver white light. It was like wham! It's like a flash. And I'm like, and all of a sudden I heard her voice filled my head, and she said, "Mark, you've been given the gift of mediumship so that you would not be crushed by grief, but now you must help those who are suffering with theirs." talk about a defining moment in your life.
Without a doubt. Wow.
Yeah, and that started me on the path to writing Never Letting Go, which is a guide on the journey through grief, and it is inspirational in that it brings forth messages of love and hope from the other side. It teaches people how to recognize when their loved ones in spirit are near, and it's healing in that it presents proof, evidence that the afterlife exists. And I was just overwhelmed at how widely it was acclaimed and received. And you know, Kat, authors, we certainly, we have to be open to criticism. And when you put yourself out there, not only as an author, but as a psychic medium and a lawyer who sees dead people, you can only imagine the cowards, the bullies, the cynics, and the religious fanatics who want to take pot shots at me constantly on social media, because they're cowards. I mean, they'd never say that to my face. All right.
Well,
and
of course
if they
not
did,
everybody's a keyboard warrior.
Yeah, everybody's a keyboard warrior. Social media gives cowards a chance to be bullies. That's one of the downsides of it, but there are many upsides. And I was getting a lot of very positive feedback, and the reviews on it were very good. And then I received a letter from this lady in Australia, and she said that she was going to commit suicide. She was going to take her own life until she read Never Letting Go.
Oh, wow.
Because she was so depressed when her mother died. And it's a long story, so I won't get off into that tangent. But she told me this story. And I remember reading this letter, and it like changed my life. And if I'd only sold that one copy that somehow, made it to Australia, then it was worth all the difficulty, all the aggravation, all the criticism, all the hard work that it takes to write a book. And then the letters didn't stop coming. I mean, from all over the world. And then I knew that I had to leave the active practice of law. I mean, I'm still an attorney, and I still appear on shows as a legal analyst on TV, radio. I'll work on cold cases, try to help the police solve murders. But that's when I knew that this is where I needed to be.
Well, I think it's beautiful that you were that open to doing that. And the woman that wrote you that first letter must have been so overwhelmed that something like this book came into her life at that moment.
I've heard something really strange and dozens of times, and I even saw it happen one time, which really blew me away. People have said that they have been devastated by grief, and they'll go to a bookstore, whether it's a metaphysical store or a Barnes & Noble or a mom-and-pop bookstore, and they'll be looking at books on grieving or on psychic phenomenon. And I've heard dozens of times they said, your book leapt out at me. And I go, oh, you mean you noticed the cover? They said, no. It came,
yes.
It fell off the shelf. And I was for years saying, that sounds really weird. And then I did a public event, a mediumship demonstration, and I came out at this bookstore called Aquarian Dreams. And this woman, all of a sudden I saw she was looking at a bookshelf, and my book flew off the shelf, and all these people screamed, and I'm like, oh my God, it really does happen. And it's not like I go around and put little spring injectors all over the world, and it's just amazing to hear something like that. And because well, I was hearing it, and of course I always approach things with a healthy dose of skepticism myself. Not cynicism, but skepticism. There's a difference between a skeptic and a cynic.
There certainly is. Yes.
Yeah, but then I saw it, and it's like, wow, that just was very, very humbling.
Well, maybe your mom knows who needs a little nudge.
Apparently, my mom, her name was Jeannie. It wouldn't be the first time somebody came to me and they said, "I felt this." I wrote about this in Never Letting Go. When I was practicing law, this guy was driving by my office, and then he pulled in, and he started telling me what happened. It was very tragic. He was at a funeral, and he was pulling out of the church, and this boy on a motorcycle hit his car, and it killed him.
Oh, yes.
And the guy is like, "I didn't mean to do it," and then he was just devastated. And he said, "And when I was driving by your office, something told me I needed to come here and that you would understand." And I remember, going through all this, and he decided to hire me as his attorney. When he left, my secretary, she was a trip. She comes in and she goes, "Apparently Jeannie set up a marketing campaign on the other side." and I mean, I don't mean to laugh about
very
something
effective,
like that.
though.
But it was the way she said it, because when I would hire staff members, and I don't have a law office now, so if you have legal problems, please don't start flooding my website with legal issues. I'm concentrating on my work as a medium. But when I'd hire somebody, I'd tell them, "Okay, I'm not asking you to believe in what I do, but you're going to hear things, and things are going to happen around here. They're going to be a little bit different." And basically, I'd say the vast majority of people that have worked for me thought it was cool. So
well, that's a plus, because it is. So a little disconcerting when you're anticipating being stuck in the stacks, I would think.
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
So when you got this book out and people started responding that way to you, were you taken aback? Or did you just feel like, well, my mom guided me this way. Obviously, she knew what we were doing. And look, I've done this, and now it's kind of a big deal, kind of overwhelming, it sounds like at times, when people would respond with such accolades and such stories. Was it something that you were just able to take in stride, or were you just constantly surprised?
I think all the above. What I've come to learn is that life is like a river, and you need to flow with it instead of against it. So imagine yourself in a kayak, and you're trying to paddle against a river's current. Or you may make a little bit of headway, but you're going to get exhausted, and you're probably at some point going to lose control of the kayak, and it's going to flip over and wash you downstream. So I'm of the opinion you got to flow with the current, and sometimes it's smooth sailing and the views are beautiful. Other times it's rapids and white water, and when you lose a loved one or go through other catastrophes, it's going over a waterfall, but you've got to go with it. And so when all of these things started happening, I realized that I just had to go with it. And the transition came about 8 or 9 months after the experience where I saw the flash of light that was my mother, and the message from her from the other side. I started working at a government agency. I was hired by this guy that he got elected to the office, and he wanted me to handle court operations. And I thought, well, this is great. So this is a segue out of law, and I figured I'd work there for maybe a couple of years before deciding whether to continue writing books and all of that. And then I remember his political opponents started attacking him because he'd hired me, and they were saying, "Oh, they hired a psychic. The government's paying for a psychic." And of course, I wasn't hired because of my psychic abilities. I was hired because I've managed 4 law firms. I've tried 300 jury trials. I mean, I've been a prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, complex civil litigation. I mean, I know the legal system, and I know how to manage people in law firms. And they were getting all this flack, and I was Never Letting Go had just come out, and I was with my manager. Her name is Rocky, and for the people who've seen me, Rocky introduces me, and she travels with me and handles my media appearances. And I was in Massachusetts. I was in Boston. I was supposed to be giving a lecture at Harvard about spirit communication and the afterlife. And my boss is on the phone going, oh, well, even though I lost the election, I'm still in here. We're catching all this flack and blah, 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 blah. I said, I quit. He goes, what? I go, I quit. I don't need to be there anymore. Consider this my resignation. I hung up. And I said, oh, my God, Rocky, I can't believe what I just did. I just left my job. I just effectively closed the door on the legal profession. And Rocky, she's all of 5 feet tall. I'm 6'1", and she, but when she makes a point, it's like she grows like, 8 feet tall. and she said, Mark, look around. Where are you? I said, Harvard. What are you doing in an hour? I'm giving a lecture on the afterlife. She goes, I think you made the right decision.
No doubt. Well, we are going to take our first break, and we will be right back. I think that's pretty neat. So I think she was right. So we'll be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. This is Kat Hobson, and I am so glad that you are with us tonight. I am having the best time with my guest, and I bet you are too. We are just going to continue on because his experiences are fascinating to me. We are going to be taking some calls later, and I'm going to let you, Mark, kind of determine when you want to do that. And I've got my Skype phone number I'm going to put into the chats, and that way people can actually call us. And I did practice. I actually practiced not dropping calls, taking another call on Skype. So that's going to be a positive thing.
You know, one of the pluses of this COVID pandemic, and I say that not that I'm enjoying this pandemic, but we're turning more and more to this beautiful, miraculous technology that we have. Because even though we've got to social distance and stay away from crowds, what we do have is we've got Skype and Zoom and Google Hangouts and all these other programs that show us that we really are interconnected. And I think that this is a wonderful thing. And it's also gotten me better with it, too. So kudos, Kat, for for figuring all that out.
Well, I didn't say it was perfect yet.
Hey, we got to start somewhere.
We are working so hard on perfect. But
yeah.
I have tried to do this before, and one of my co-hosts are in here laughing at me. But it's just one of those things that I have not mastered, and it just makes me crazy because I don't like not doing something well. That's okay. Can't do everything perfect. But I just really enjoy being able to add people to a conversation when it's something that matters to them so much. It's pretty cool.
Well, sure. When we get into the reading section, and that should probably be during the second hour.
Works for me.
Yeah, what people need to understand is I'm not a fortune teller. So if you're calling up for love life and career, that's not what I do.
That was
I connect
my first
with
question.
Spirits. Oh, everybody. And you know what's funny? Let's talk about that for a second. It's so funny when people say, well, I find true love. And my response, other than I'm not a fortune teller, is, well, what are you doing about finding true love? Nothing. Well, what I've discovered in life is if you get out of something what you put into it. So if you're doing absolutely nothing, okay, if you want to sit on the couch every night and eat a box of Oreo cookies and avoid social situations, and I'm not talking during the pandemic, okay, once that passes. My advice is get out there, join organizations, clubs, even your faith community, things that you're interested in, and then your concentric circles will start intersecting with the circles of somebody that has things in common with you and things that you like to do together. That's how you meet people. I could even go through online. I'm just always telling people be very cautious. If you meet somebody from some other country that is stranded there and only you can help them, and they're a princess or a prince or whatever, and send money, don't do that. I mean, it is amazing how gullible people can be, and it's also pathetic how heartless the predators that prey upon lonely and elderly people can be. So you've just got to be very careful about that. And then when people say, well, will I get a new job? And I ask, well, what are you doing about that? Nothing. Well, then how are you going to get a new job if you do nothing about it? Work on your skill set. Come up with a great resume. Start looking at other careers, other jobs, other places where you believe you'll be a good fit. I'm a firm believer, Kat, that God helps those who help themselves.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, how many times have we heard that old story about there is a flood, and this man climbs up on his roof, and the flood waters are climbing. He says, God, save me, and this log goes floating by. And he ignores it. He goes, God, save me. And now the water is up to his feet, and he's on the top of his roof. And a canoe goes floating by, and he does nothing about it. He goes, God, save me. The water's now up to his waist. He's standing on his roof, and a helicopter goes by with a ladder, and he doesn't, hanging down, and they're screaming, grab it, and he doesn't, and he drowns. And then he's in heaven or the other side or whatever you want to call it, and the divine power of God he comes to before God and says, why didn't you save me? And God said, well, I sent you a log, I sent you a canoe, I sent you a helicopter. What do you want? You
got to grab one. Yeah.
You got to grab one. I think I would have jumped on the log first off myself. But the point is if you put the effort out there, failure, what's the saying? A master fails more than a beginner ever tried. Yeah. And the thing is, life is full of failures. That's when we learn from our mistakes. We grow in response to adversity. Look what's going on with this COVID-19 crisis. It's absolutely horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I try to stay away from getting political, but let's look at it on the personal level. What we're learning is we're completely unprepared for biological warfare, and but by the time it's over with, or we won't be, okay, in other words, we'll have masks, the PPE, the personal protective equipment, we'll have ventilators, we'll be better prepared for it. But it's also getting families to interact. When I go for my daily walks, I see parents interacting with their children in ways I've never seen before. I see couples holding hands. I see people picking up the phone, calling elderly relatives and friends. I see people reaching out. And in a way, it's like we've gone back in time to a more basic, simplistic era when we actually had to have real conversations with people. And the beauty of modern technology is even if we have to social distance, we can still do that. So the technology, instead of being a gap between people, it's now become a bridge. And I think that is, in a way, it's sort of a reset. I also think that it's finally going to wake up people. It's like when I do public events. And I'm doing a mediumship event, and people are sitting on the front row hacking and coughing. I'm sorry, but I always ask them, can you please move? And people get all offended by this. Look, I'm on the road 20 weeks a year. I can't afford to get the flu or the cold, and I'm tired of people telling me, oh, you need to get the antibodies. Well, excuse me, I can't do my job, and I'm running 101 fever, okay?
That's right. And now they won't even let you fly if you're ever running any kind of fever in the future. So, yeah, you've got to stay healthy.
Well, yeah, I think this is a wake-up call to people. Wash your hands, exercise good personal hygiene. If you're sick, wear a mask, cover your mouth when you sneeze or cough, or stay home. It's also making people more germ conscious. And there's going to be additional benefits to this because when people start implementing these behaviors, not only are COVID-19 cases going to decrease, but we're also going to see the flu, the common cold, strep throat, bronchitis, and pneumonia start decreasing too. Because people go and they hack and cough and in public, they don't cover their hands. They go to work, oh, I'm sick, I'm coming to work. Great, come into work, infect 20 other people, infect another 250 people. That's how epidemics and pandemics spread. So Absolutely. There's going to be an enhanced awareness of this. So as horrible as this thing is, for every action there's a reaction. So some good will come out of this.
Well, it would just about have to. You know, I was at the shore just to get out of my house. We have a place that we can go. It's just us, no interaction necessary. And everyone there was like on top of each other. There were none of the 6-foot guidelines. There was nothing. It was elbow to elbow on the waiting to get in to sit at a restaurant where you were going to be sitting basically on top of people inside too. And the hubster came back and said, oh my gosh, we are never going to get out of lockdowns because these people are going to, in 2 or 3 weeks, the numbers are going to be insane. And they're from everywhere. They're New York, they're Jersey, they're Louisiana, they're, wherever. And I said, well, I don't know what to say to that.
What people don't seem to understand is the longer you don't social distance, the longer we're going to have to social distance.
Exactly.
And I've been on several shows to discuss COVID-19 conspiracy theories. It just floors me when I see people going, there's something else going on here. You don't quarantine healthy people. And they're like, and I see all this ignorance and stupidity. I'm sorry, I'm just going to come out and say it.
That's okay.
This is not a conspiracy. All right, people are saying the government's doing this. Look, love him or hate him, Trump is such a narcissist. He would never run the economy of the United States into the ground for no other reason than it would make him look bad. Okay, so give him credit on that. He will not do that. It doesn't benefit China to run their economy into the ground or destroy ours because they make money off of us. Then there was people saying, well, Russia started, except now they are just being overwhelmed by this. The European economies are bogged down. The third world is. The truth of the matter is there have been pandemics since the dawn of human history. And we know the bubonic plague, the notorious Black Death, which swept through Europe. And, of course, the conspiracy theory is that it was evil spirits and God was punishing people. Well, now we know it was from the fleas on rats, and everybody had fleas then. And rats. They both had fleas and rats back then. And that the fleas carried a bacteria which transmitted the bubonic plague. Then there was the sweating sickness, which swept through Europe in the 15 and 1600s. And while in quarantine, Shakespeare wrote several plays like Antony and Cleopatra, I think Macbeth, and a couple others. In 1665, during the Great Plague that swept through Europe, Sir Isaac Newton, in social isolation, developed the laws of gravity, the laws of optics, and invented calculus. And then there was the Spanish flu of 1917 and 1918, which I believe killed 25 million people. And I've heard it was 25 million people in the United States. I got to verify the numbers there. But the Spanish flu killed more people than died in World War I. So it was probably
I did not know that.
Yes,
that's a lot of people.
Well, and what happened was, especially in the United States, so when the armistice was signed, everybody went out and they were all they weren't social distancing. They didn't call it that then, but that's what gave rise to the second wave, and that's when it swept through the U.S. and Europe and really walloped people and took the toll into the millions. So plagues have occurred throughout human history. There's people that are saying that Bill Gates caused it because he wants to inject people with a vaccine that has a microchip so that he can track your whereabouts. Well, newsflash, your phone already does that. Secondly, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation spends $3 billion per year on healthcare in the third world, and they also donated $100 million of their own fortune to help in the COVID fight in the United States. And all this conspiracy nonsense with Bill Gates stems from a TED Talk that he gave in 2015. Yeah, he said the world is not ready for a pandemic, and if it happens, it'll look like this. Surprise, it looks like this. One of the more interesting theories is that George Soros is behind it, and that George Soros owns the the biological weapons lab, one of them, in Wuhan province in China, and that he is unleashing this on the world to defeat Donald Trump and get him out of the White House. Now, Snopes, which is a fact-checking website, has found no connection between Soros and the Wuhan biological weapons facility in Wuhan province, so that one doesn't seem very plausible. The 5G technology, now that's an interesting one.
I see, that is an interesting one because that one seemed to take hold for a little while longer than the others did.
It's an interesting theory because 5G is the fifth generation of cell phone technology, and so the conspiracy theorists there are saying that it's a vibrational frequency and a radio. It's basically like radioactivity. We know that radioactivity can and does cause cellular damage, which can result in cancer. And also, when we hear about people who do Reiki and energy healing, and also the big development in 21st century medicine will be vibrational energy healing on a cellular level. So there is, in theory, some type of scientific basis for it, although none of the medical experts or scientists have found any link between 5G and the COVID. One of the most plausible theories is that this got out accidentally from a Chinese biological weapons plant. And according to reports that I've read, Wuhan province has 3 such facilities.
Yep.
So it appears that it was not intentionally released, that it could have been accidentally released. And then the question is whether this is a biologically a bioengineered virus, which it gives a lot of indications that it could be based on its rapid rate of mutation, the fact that it's 10 times more contagious than the flu and 10 times more lethal than the flu, and that it is the most virulent when someone is asymptomatic. So you're the most contagious when you show no symptoms. Yeah. So there's that's, I think, if there is a conspiracy theory that holds water, I think that would be the most plausible. But despite all of that, we are where we are. So whether it's a conspiracy, a 5G, or what have you, the only way to prevent from getting it is to protect yourself and social distance. And we've got to give the scientists and the medical experts the breathing time to develop vaccines and treatments. But Kat,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go right ahead.
Well, with what you have seen, because I know through your education and professional background relevant to the legal profession, you have seen people behaving in different environments in certain ways. People react. Humans are predictable for the most part.
Yes.
And it's very, I do not understand why no one saw that trying to tell Americans you're going to have to stay inside. We're spoiled. We are not the greatest generation. And the one behind us is certainly not the greatest generation yet. So, yeah, maybe coming through something like this will help that. But, people are reacting the way I would have anticipated Americans reacting. And it just amazes me that, like what I saw this weekend, not a cure in the world for anything. And I said that during spring break too. There's going to be so many sick people because of this. And I think that it's something that gives one pause when you realize that there's an awful lot of people that really couldn't care less about their society.
When I started hearing politicians, elected officials say that we should be willing to sacrifice our elderly for the economy. Wow.
I know, right?
That was disgusting. These are it's just horrifying to hear that. And there was some politician being interviewed, and he said, well, 50 people dying, that's an acceptable loss. And so the interviewer put up a picture of 50 people, and he goes, hey, those are all my relatives. And the interviewer said, well, is it okay if those 50 people die?
Yeah. Great question.
All of a sudden, one of the reasons I think that it spread so quickly in Italy is, part of my family is of Italian heritage, and we're very tactile. We hug each other. Italians are very touchy-feely and tactile. There's a lot of emotion, and in Italy, multi-generations live in the same house. The grandparents will live with their kids who live with their kids, and they're all in the same house. And so what was happening is people were, in close proximity, and they contracted the coronavirus, came home, and then gave it to the family, and people started dying. Certainly we can understand how it spread like wildfire in New York City. If you've ever been in New York City, you can't go anywhere in New York City without thousands of people being around you, and
especially if you're on the train, and especially if you're at rush hour. The trains. Yeah, I should have fallen and couldn't, but we are at our second break. But completely, a woman saved me because we were crushed together. So we will be right back after this, and thank you all for being here with us. Y'all come back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am so glad that you are here with me and my guest, Mark Anthony. We have been having a really fun and interesting discussion, and we were just talking about conspiracy theories relevant to what's going on around the world right now. And, you know, I am so glad this came up because while I do not often talk about things like this on the air, it's real. You know, people are coping. And you were talking at the beginning of this about the change that you see when you go out for a walk, where you see the family interactions and people are actually interacting in their homes. It's not just get home from work, everybody's exhausted, feed the baby, and go to bed. You know, it's actually getting to spend time together. And that's where you get the connection. It's so beautiful.
It's true. According to reports, parents spend less than, I think, 5 minutes a day talking to their children. But now when people have to be home together, they're actually interacting. There's another very positive thing going on. There's something like 102 vaccines being worked on worldwide. But for the first time in human history, all of our biological experts, our medical experts, our scientists are all working together for common purpose. Yes. And this is unprecedented. And what it's showing us, this, I believe, is a planetary message, a lesson being presented that we have. The gift God has given all of us is our brain. And for the first time in human history, all the brain trust is working to solve the same problem instead of trying to figure out ways to develop weapons to kill each other and to dominate each other. We're all working together. And during the lockdowns, the air's cleaner, the water's cleaner. I mean,
my sky was completely blue. The Grand Canal in Venice was clear. I mean,
there were dolphins.
Yes.
In the canals of Venice. They haven't been there for hundreds of years.
Exactly.
I mean, my friends in LA said that the sky's blue. They said it's actually blue. I mean, it's funny, hearing people talk about this. Nature, animals are rebounding. Apparently, basically, nature really doesn't need us. Nope. It certainly doesn't need our dependence on fossil fuels. But what we're learning is that our scientists Scientists like to share information and exchange ideas, and this is happening now. And it can expand not just beyond COVID, but to cancer, maybe to a form implementing clean uses of coal and fossil fuels to reduce carbon emissions, to boost food production without, raping planet Earth the way we've been doing it. There's a lot of things that can be solved and the quality of our lives enhanced with a more verdant and ecologically sensitive approach if we let our scientists work together and develop the technology. And this is the lesson that's being prevented. I fear, though, that governments and the people who rule them are going to slide back into their self-centered behaviors. Now, we certainly know that, from what I've been reading in the foreign reports, the crazy religious terrorists in the Middle East are still, being crazy religious terrorists. Yeah, but, because minds that hate. I always like, what was that Beatles song, Revolution, or John Lennon said, if you want money for people with minds that hate, all I can tell you, brother, is you have to wait revolution. And there are just some people whose minds are always going to hate. And they're just very negative people. But they are they're the dark energies that walk amongst us, and we cannot see the light if it were not for the darkness. And the universe is one of balance. And so while COVID is an absolutely horrific pandemic, the balance is we're being presented with the opportunity to start working together to solve the planet's problems. And it's being presented to us in a form that country A does not have to become an empire and conquer countries B through K. This is a fascinating development. We all really could realize that planet Earth is the only place we have to live, so we have to stop polluting it and trying to kill each other.
Exactly. Well, I agree with all of that because this is an opportunity. And if people will just treat it as such, and not just the scientists coming together, if the populace could do that too, that'd be nice. But we have a question for you.
Sure.
And I have a question for you. When you talked about the people who hate, the people who live through hate, there's a lot of that. And it comes in different forms of hate. But one of the things that I know you do is you read energy. And you're very sensitive to energy. I am too. Can you tell a person's heart when you are around them? And I have a reason I'm asking this.
When you say tell their heart, do you mean in the physiological sense or the emotional sense?
The emotional sense, I guess. Can you determine if someone is a horrid person or if someone has ill intent? Can you ascertain that?
Many times. What I've found, particularly with sociopaths, and I've had this discussion with other psychic mediums, you can't read a sociopath. And sociopaths, according to psychiatrists, they're completely incapable of the emotion of love. It's pure narcissism. They're amoral. They know the difference between right and wrong, but it doesn't matter to them. And so if you try to read them, it's like there's nothing there. And so that's how we can spot them. So from that perspective, yes. But then there's other people too that you can pick up on, that I can pick up on, like highly manipulative and things like that. So I would say yes. But what people need to realize about psychic ability, it doesn't make you all-knowing and all-seeing. That's where people say, well, if you were so smart, just win the lottery. And it's like, well, if the other side wants to transmit the winning Powerball or lottery numbers to me, I'm certainly willing to take that information. But they don't seem to be too concerned with our material wealth. What they're concerned with is far beyond that, such as healing. And good health. But anyway, you have another part to your question, or there's somebody else who has a question.
Well, we'll go with the question. In chat, Sherry would like to know, do you, with your gifts, and, you're doing all the shows, you actually, through an appearance on The Doctors, provided information to solve a cold case, which I thought was fascinating. But
yes.
Do you know any, I'm not sure what she means by celebrities, maybe public psychics or anyone else that impresses you with their abilities?
I don't really spend any time assessing other psychics and mediums, because I'm focusing solely on what I do and the work I do with helping other people.
There you go. I would do that too, because when you left the legal profession, it was to develop your mediumship. So your psychic skills. Do you have to exercise those? Are there procedures that you do that can improve that for you?
Well, prayer and meditation. Prayer is when we talk to the divine power we call God. Meditation is when we listen. And the first line of Evidence of Eternity, I quote Geronimo, the great Native American warrior, who says that the sun, the moon, the earth, the wind is always listening. And then the question I ask is, but are we? And so that's why it's so important for us to meditate, because that's when we receive messages. And also, it's when, Kat, we clear out our consciousness. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, if you go through the whole course of a day, think of your consciousness, your mind, as a blackboard or a whiteboard, okay, and you got Sharpies, and every thought, emotion, impulse, you write over it, and you're right on it and write over it, and by the end of the day, it's a mess. I mean, it looks like a pile of spaghetti in 50 different colors. And so the point of meditation is to erase the whiteboard and have one thought, one thing that you're working on, one question that you're pondering. Perhaps you'll receive an answer. Perhaps it will take time to receive the answer, but it's about listening. It's like, take the earbuds out. When you go for a jog or a bike ride, take all these distractions out. Pay attention to the world around you. Put the cell phone down. Turn the computers off. Go inward. Sometimes an awareness exercise could just be closing your eyes, relaxing, and then make a mental note of every single thing around you that you can hear. Be surprised at how many things you just tune out. And so doing things like that helps enhance and fine-tune one's awareness, which then can be extrapolated into when you connect with higher frequencies that are spirits from the other side.
I do that.
Well, there you go.
It's a wonderful thing. And, I really didn't understand the value of meditation until I actually thought, I guess I'll give this a go. Somebody had told me, you've got to do it. It makes you feel so good. And I was like, well, my favorite Bible verse is, be still and know I'm God. I'm really good at just getting outside and being. So I decided to just include some conversation with that and then shut up, which is very hard. Nobody listening to this is going to believe that. But it was astounding, the peace that comes over you, and I think that's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he's a very devout Catholic, and he said that, I think we all have nights like this. I know I do, where you wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and you're just restless and you can't get back to sleep. He said he starts to pray. For him, he does the rosary. And for those who don't, it's funny. I've encountered a lot of people. I never heard of a rosary. Being raised in the Catholic faith, a rosary are prayer beads, and there's 10 beads, and then a single beads. There's a space, a single bead, then 10 more beads, and each 10 beads is called a decade, and then the one before it. And anyway, it's each bead is a prayer. And you can use your fingers if you want, and you don't even have to say rote prayers. But if you look at like what the Hindus do and the Buddhists, where they do mantras like Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare, and what they're doing is they're saying the names of God and repeating that. Because what you want to do, what I found is when you start to pray, the distractions, the fear, the aggravation, the agitation starts to melt away, and after a couple minutes, you can start to relax. Because, the time between 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm just using that as an example, that can be awful. You wake up and you'll be agitated, or you had a bad dream, or you start thinking about everything in your life that feels like it's not going right. So instead of flooding your mind with negativity, let's replace those thoughts with reaching out to God. And you will find that begins to wash away all of that stress and replace it with an enhanced frequency of a spiritual connection.
Absolutely. Can you believe our first hour is up? I am so surprised that
wow.
I know, right? A good conversation does that. So we will be back. We're going to go for our news break. This is a good time to stretch your legs, fill your coffee cup or your tea glass, and we'll be back on the other side. You'll come back too.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is expanding access to coronavirus testing as parts of the state begin a phased reopening. Desiree Diorio of member station WSHU reports New York has more testing capacity than it's using.
Any New Yorker who has any symptom of COVID-19 may now get a test at one of the state's 700 test sites. The expanded eligibility also includes people without symptoms, if they're an essential worker, and anyone who's returning to work as part of the Phase 1 reopening. Cuomo says testing is more important than ever as some parts of the state reopened last week for limited business activities, including construction and curbside retail.
Well, how do you know what the spread of the virus is? Testing.
Cuomo says the state can conduct up to 40,000 tests per day, but it's not. Some drive-through sites are only using about a third of their capacity. For NPR News, I'm Desiree Diorio in New York.
The World Health Organization's annual oversight convention starts tomorrow. Normally, representatives from the WHO's 194 member states gather in Geneva. But as NPR's Jason Beaubien reports, this year's meeting is happening online because of the pandemic.
As the world faces the worst pandemic in over a century, the WHO's annual oversight meeting could bolster international cooperation against COVID-19, or it could turn into a showdown between the U.S. and China. Larry Gostin, a professor of global health law at Georgetown University, says this is the most important moment in the WHO's 70-year history.
They have never faced a global health challenge like this. They've never faced a political challenge like this.
Gostin says at the very moment that the world needs a global response to the viral pandemic, nations are showing less and less willingness to cooperate with a UN agency like the WHO. Jason Beaubien, NPR News.
The impact of COVID-19 on the European economy has leaders concerned that China will attempt to buy up struggling companies to gain a competitive advantage. As Terry Schultz reports from Brussels, a key EU lawmaker wants to block such purchases for the next year.
The head of the European Parliament's biggest political group, Manfred Weber, says the EU should stop what he calls the Chinese shopping tour for at least 12 months. He says Europe needs to be vigilant against an authoritarian model and strategic competitor gaining more of a foothold in Europe. Chinese entities already own hundreds of companies and have majority stakes in key assets such as Greek and Belgian ports.
Terry Schultz reporting. NASCAR is back. Drivers got back into their car at South Carolina's Darlington Raceway today with masks and social distancing, but with no fans in the stands. It's the first NASCAR race in 10 weeks because of the pandemic. Darlington plans to hold 3 events in 4 days. You're listening to NPR News from Washington. In North Carolina, worshipers can again attend religious services in person. From member station WUNC, Jeff Tiberi reports that a federal judge blocked some of the governor's pandemic restrictions.
Democratic Governor Roy Cooper had restricted in-person religious services as part of executive action prohibiting gatherings of more than 10 people. However, on Saturday, federal judge James Deaver ruled that order amounts to a violation of the First Amendment. The judge sided with 2 Baptist churches and a Christian revival group, which sued the governor Thursday. The new temporary restraining order encourages religious worshipers to observe social distancing recommendations. According to the governor's staff, he will not appeal the ruling. For NPR News, I'm Jeff Tabiri in Wilmington, North Carolina.
The National Hurricane Center has issued a tropical storm warning for North Carolina's Outer Banks as Tropical Storm Arthur inches closer to the East Coast. It's the first named storm of the season. Eric Blake is a forecaster with the National Hurricane Center.
The storm is generating high seas along the coast of the southeast U.S. coast, and it should be spreading up into the mid-Atlantic coast during the next day or two. These swells can cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions and really can be killers in weak systems like this.
Forecasters say the storm will stay well off the coasts of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas and will approach North Carolina tomorrow. 1 to 3 inches of rain is expected. All of this ahead of hurricane season, which officially starts on June 1st. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News from Washington.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back. We are so glad to have you listening to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am Kat Hobson. I am so glad you're here. This has been a really fun, really interesting show. We kind of went down some roads that both of us had some opinions on, and it worked out great. So we are going to just continue. We are having... Oh, I guess I should tell you that Mark Anthony is who I'm talking with. Sorry about that, Mark. Mark is an Oxford-educated attorney. He got to Oxford because he was such a genius at Mercer. So there you go. He is a psychic, a pretty brilliant psychic, and he is a really terrific author as well. His books are Never Letting Go and Evidence of Eternity. I think, and you just said you had finished a manuscript for a third book, right? Mark? Uh-oh.
Oh, I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I just finished a manuscript on my next book, and I think we're going to there's just a few things I got to do before we get it good to go. But that will be coming, and so I believe 2021 is when that book will be available. And what I'm doing in my next book is I'm going in Evidence of Eternity. I bridge the gap between the spiritual and the scientific based on quantum physics, scientific data, human physiology, evidence, and actually faith. And I'm going in, and it was so well received. People have been asking for more, particularly in the quantum physics realm. So I'm going even further with that. But I just want people to know that the way I write, please don't expect a dry dissertation. Reading my books is not like watching cement harden.
True.
I will explain the scientific concepts, but then illustrate them with stories, true stories that you can relate to, because when I was sitting in law school, having to suffer through some of the most boring books imaginable,
yes.
I vowed that one day when I write a book or more books, I'm not going to do that to anybody. So that's my pledge to all my readers.
It is appreciated. Now, I wanted to get into the quantum physics side of this because you say that quantum physics proves the soul exists. And,
yes, absolutely.
Yes, how consciousness through the electrical connection in your brain just kind of is there. And I do want to say one thing. I saw you, and this quote stuck with me. You said that you don't view yourself as really, anything other than the custodian of the gift from God that you have of spirit communication with loved ones. And
yes,
I think that's very intense, and I don't know that everyone realizes that that really is what you and people like you do. You know, this is something that not everyone is honored to be blessed with. Not everyone thinks it's a blessing. I personally think it is. And it is something that you are taking care of. You're gifted this to be able to help others, in my opinion. So I just wanted to let you know that when I saw that quote of yours, I thought, hey, I like that. I'm going to mention that to him. So
I appreciate that. Well, you know, it's easy. When I was in England at the Arthur Findlay College for the advancement of psychic science, I mean, it's sort of Hogwarts.
You elitist, you.
Psychics. Yeah, I mean, well, you know, I was the only American in the program, and it was interesting because I'd be sitting there with people from all over the world, and we were talking about this. And it was the first time I was ever in a purely psychic environment. I mean, everybody. Oh, wow. It really was like Hogwarts. You know, in Hogwarts, even the people that are mopping the floors are witches or wizards, you know, and we're not witches or wizards, but everybody there and that worked there was psychic. And, you know, we were saying that, you know, we're not the X-Men. Okay, you know, we don't have these superpowers that make us superior or better. It's just we have different abilities. It's like if you get a bunch of athletes together. Okay, they may chase a ball and they run fast or throw a ball faster. They can swim real fast or, you know, do whatever it is. And that may make them really good in their field, but it doesn't make them superior to anyone else as a person. And when you realize that everyone in the world is my superior and that I may learn something from him or her, then that puts it in perspective. And I look at myself as being the custodian of this gift. I am not the gift. I am the custodian of it. And it is my ability to tune into the higher frequency, the other dimension that is the other side. And to simplify this, think of Albert Einstein said that everything was energy. And he was correct. He said there is no matter, there's just energy which vibrates at different frequencies. And everything is made of molecules, which are made of atoms, which are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. And thanks to Albert Einstein, Max Planck, Werner Heisenberg, Louis de Broglie, and others, we now know that they are made of a smaller particle known as quanta, ergo quantum physics. And quanta is electromagnetic energy. So everything in creation at its most basic level is the same form of electromagnetic energy. It's just that some things vibrate at higher frequencies. For example, you know, our bodies vibrate at a higher frequency than the chair we're sitting on. But on the subatomic level, they're both electromagnetic energy, which also indicates that everything in existence in this world, inside of our planet, all the way to the sun and beyond, including the spaces in between, are all interconnected by the same energy. So the reason that the soul exists is that we know that the brain has an electrical field and that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. Kat, every great spiritual leader from the Hindu sages 5,000 years ago, through Buddha, through Jesus, through Gandhi, through Mother Teresa, St. Francis of Assisi, Billy Graham, Lao Tzu, Yogananda Paramahansa, the Native American spiritualist, we could go on and on and on, has always talked about how the soul pre-exists the body, comes into the body, and when the body ceases to function, moves on. That's the concept of eternal life. And it coincides with energy being neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. And so the brain does not create consciousness, it merely houses it the way a computer hard drive houses the programs and the data which are placed on it. Because if you just create a computer hard drive in a laboratory, it doesn't know anything. It isn't anything until the data is put into it. And so it's the same thing with our soul. It comes into the brain, and when the brain ceases to function, it doesn't disintegrate or dissipate. it continues on. And based on the last 50 years of survival of consciousness studies, started by Dr. Raymond Moody, and the near-death experience studies, we now know that consciousness, who and what we are, survives our physical death and remains coherent.
Yes. You know, I was fortunate enough that he was one of my first interviews 5 years ago.
He's great.
Almost 6 years. He is. And he lives near me. So I keep saying I'm going to ride out there and have dessert on their porch. I haven't yet. But his work...
You should.
I am. But his work is brilliant. One of my friends that I was unaware that a friend of mine had been one of his first study participants. And she showed up in the chat room, and I was just like, well, hey. And she was like, oh, well, will you tell Dr. Moody I said hi? And I'm like, well, okay. And she told me why later. I was like, that is so cool. But he was just, when I was reading all these things about you and studying for this interview, I found out that you do a lot of work with his institute. Is that right?
Well, with International Association Near-Death Studies, yes. And actually, Dr. Moody endorsed my book, Evidence of Eternity. I consider him a friend, a colleague. He's just a brilliant man. And what he did is for thousands of years, there have been accounts of people who died and then came back to life. And these accounts of resurrections baffled religious leaders and physicians, because people would come back and talk about how they were floating above their body and looking at it and going through this tunnel into the light and encountering loved ones who have died. And they'd come back with these incredibly detailed stories that seemed extremely real. And nobody even knew what to call this until Dr. Raymond Moody coined the term near-death experience, because you die, you come very near to not coming back. And what's funny is his colleague, Dr. Kenneth Ring, he said that the beauty of your work, Mark, is you take up where the NDE trail goes cold. In other words, the people that I talked to on the other side, well, it wasn't a near-death experience. It was a death experience.
Right.
And their souls come and communicate to me. And it's unfortunate how some religious people yank various quotes out of the Bible to say, do not consult mediums, they're evil, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, it also says to put your daughter to death if she menstruates and walks into a temple, and if your neighbor works on the Sabbath, he shall be put to death. So, enough with this Bronze Age nonsense. There are other passages in the Bible, like 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 4 through 12, which gives a list of gifts from God, one of which is prophecy, the other which is discernment of spirits. Also Romans 12, verses 6 through 8 discusses the gift. We all have gifts from God, and if your gift is prophecy, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. And so there are other passages throughout the Bible which are in favor of this. And we also have to realize that the Bible's largely parable and metaphor in order to present and teach a lesson of spiritual significance. It's the way Jesus taught. Jesus taught by giving parables. The prodigal son, the Good Samaritan, was it the 5 foolish bridesmaids and the 7 wise, with the oil and the lamps. And he gave several parables because it was easy for people to understand things in story form. And the Bible's filled with people communicating with spirits in the other side. But what happened is religious leaders throughout the century have translated, mistranslated, misquoted these passages because they don't want you having a direct connect with yourself or through somebody else to the spirit world and to God. You have to go through a particular religion and, of course, give a sizable portion of your income to support that religion. So you can't get to God unless it's through us, our dogma, our clerics, and by the way, give 10% at least of your income. And so this hostility has arisen over the centuries towards mediumship, where legitimate mediums, we know that I call this a gift from God, and that's why I'm the custodian of the gift. I am not some X-Men superhero, Harry Potter wizard guy. People go, that is witchcraft. No. There's something about my brain that makes me more sensitive to ultra-high frequencies.
Yes.
And we now know that the pineal gland in the brain has both calcite and magnetite crystals. It generates an electromagnetic field. And if you look at the early forms of radios, they were quartz crystals with copper wire running low levels of electricity through it. So basically, we have in our head a radio station. And some people are simply better at this than others. Maybe genetically, I know it runs in my family, but genetically there could be something a little bit different about my pineal gland. And that doesn't make me demonic or evil. or less fluoride. I don't drink fluoride. I do not drink tap water at all.
No, I do not either.
Fluoride calcifies the pineal gland. I don't use fluoride toothpaste. I make sure I get, there's like Burt's Bees and Tom that are fluoride free. Yeah.
But we have got to take a break. I can't believe this. This is going way too fast. You're definitely going to have to come back because there's no way we're getting through everything. So we're going to
okay. We'll do some readings next.
There we go. Oh, yay! Thank you. We will be right back. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. But let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us, and we're talking about them here, looking for answers on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back. I am so glad you're here with us tonight on Fate Mag Radio. My guest is Mark Anthony. He is known as a psychic attorney, and actually, come to find out, something we're going to have to talk about next time is that he is also known a bit as the Indiana Jones of psychics. So there's all kinds of things to learn about this man. We are going to try to bring someone in on Skype. And if that doesn't work, we'll take the next step. So I've put our Skype number in chat. If you have a pen, it is 205-533-7982. And I think that we're going to open this up. So if you want to do it, now's the moment.
And Kat, if I can, for the people who are calling in for readings, normally I spend about 10 to 15 minutes prior to a one-on-one session, which you can sign up for through my website, evidenceofeternity.com, because I like to give an orientation, how to get the most out of the reading. I caution people when I say, do you recognize this or does that make sense, about going directly to no, because some people fall into what I call the no syndrome. You start shooting everything down. What you're doing there is creating a barrier. Spirits will back off. It's better to say, I'm not sure, let me think about it, or I don't yet. Energetically leaves the open, because after the reading, there's the unfolding. And it could take hours, days, weeks, and sometimes longer for the what you're doing there.
Hello? Are you there, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. We did not add that call in, and I apologize. So I'm going to try one more time, and I'm going to add them to our call. So let's get that grooving, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Because I saw the number.
Yeah, Zoom is just as complicated with this. I've been on a bunch of shows recently, and the Zoom. It's weird because it's like, the Brady Bunch, where they have like that crossword puzzle, everybody's picture, except there's like 50 people looking at you at once. And it's funny.
Well, Zoom is hilarious. I was taken aback by that.
Well, if it doesn't work, let's just take questions from the chat room, and people want to sign up for readings from my website. What I want to let everybody know, Kat, is that if you mention Fate Mag or Kat Hobson in the application form, my assistants will qualify you for a reduced fee reading with me. But that is, it's, during this crisis, we all have to do our part. So for one-on-one readings, if you mention in the application form, go through my website, and please click on the button that says phone readings. Don't go to contact Mark and start asking, how much is a reading? How much is this? How much is that? It explains all that. That's why it says phone reading. So click there, and then in the application form, please Kat's name, or Fate Mag, and you will be eligible for a reduced fee session with me. Let's go for it. Give it a go.
Hello? Hi.
Hi. I am. I'm good. My name is Beth.
Hey, Beth, this is Mark. What can I do for you? How can I help you?
Hi, Mark. Well, I've just been listening online here, and I just didn't know if I could get some type of a reading.
All right. Well, let's see who on the other side wants to step forward and communicate. Okay, I'm getting a male energy coming through connected to you. Now, he feels like he could either be on the parent level, which could be like a parent or uncle, or a male on the generation just above yours, or he could be on yours. I'm not sure just yet. And zeroing in on the heart. Okay, so what happens is first I get a gender, then he'll start giving me data, which he is, and I'm seeing a lot of problems with the left ventricle, fatty buildup in his heart, also fatty buildup in the liver. So this gentleman is having heart problems or some issues with the liver, and I'm also getting, my lymph glands in my throat, and soreness. Oh, I get what was going on. It feels to me that he was probably having severe problems breathing, which are also going into swallowing, eating prior to passing. So it appears that he had a number of health problems, definitely cardiovascular, and that he was in an impaired state for some time prior to passing, and I'm getting that he was heavily medicated, and then his heart went down. So, hold on, and yeah, I'm also getting that even though he was not able to verbalize and communicate, that he was still mentally alert, aware, and I'm getting the sense that you were in very close proximity to him when he died, because he keeps talking about you holding his hand. Does this make sense to you?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Not as cardiovascular, but a lot of the other information, yes.
What I normally explain in my pre-explanation is how different medical conditions have a similar sensation. So
right.
Just because it's going on in the chest, but there was something going on with his heart.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
All right, so
yeah.
Hold on and stand by. Do you visit, and the reason I'm asking you this, I'm not cold reading, because people hear cold reading. This is being presented to me. Do you visit his gravesite with regularity? Because here's why. I keep feeling like I'm walking through a cemetery to a gravesite, and I get this sense of acknowledgement and honoring this. And was he military?
He was not.
Okay, because the reason I say this is because I keep seeing the American flag, and of course that's significant to all of us in various ways, but I'm not sure why he keeps showing me the military flag. But before we get into that, let's take a step back with the gravesite.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Did I visit the gravesite?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. Interesting. Now he's focusing his attention on you, and Spirit's giving me a lot of medical stuff. Are you having some type of digestion? Could be acid reflux, but I get this sense when he focuses on you, a difficulty. It's almost like I don't want to say like you're bringing stuff up or repeating, but there's some type of digestive issue going on in your stomach, your GI tract. Is this making any sense to you?
That was his problem. That's what his situation was.
With that, but what's going on with you? He's talking about you with eating.
No.
Be careful.
Not that I'm
careful about the no syndrome. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to say.
Because what he's telling me.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, that was definitely the situation.
Right.
And that's how everything started with his.
Beth, I get it with him, but he's focusing on you, and he's talking about something that you're doing and you're eating, and I'm tasting a lot of sugar. So this could be an indication that sugar may be something that you need to keep an eye on. Okay, because a lot of times they'll bring up things that you may not be aware of or that you are dealing with, okay? Now, he's focusing my attention. Now, look, I know every lady that I know has a diamond or a diamond ring, and I get that. But he is showing me a diamond, and diamonds are also the birthstone for the month of April. So this could mean a significant piece of jewelry that you have or recognize with a diamond in it, which, once again, most ladies have. But this could also be a significant birth, death, anniversary, or event connected to you or to someone close to you in some way. It may be him within the month of April.
Yes.
Okay, in what way?
He passed in Aprl.
Very good. I mean, not very good, but I mean, that's a verifiable fact following a message. Now, let me explain how spirits work with me. When a spirit gives me a message of an explanatory or advisory nature, and he's talking about you and how you're eating, not necessarily the acid reflux or whatever, and it involves sugar. So this could be something, could be low blood sugar, could be high blood sugar, but there's something going on with you and sugar. That's the advice and explanation. And then when a spirit immediately follows that up with an objectively verifiable fact, meaning the month of April, when he died, that verifiable fact is how, Beth, he's letting you and I know that we've properly received and interpreted the message. And somebody over there is with him, another male, and I'm getting the flag and I'm seeing military service, and it feels like army. Who was in the army that was with him?
That could be my father. My father was in the army.
Your father, okay, so he's the military guy. All right. Wow. Did Dad, what I'm getting about your dad is he never met a cigarette he didn't like. Was your dad a heavy smoker?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, this guy, he would smoke a Camel, Benson and Hedges, Lucky Strike. I mean, I'm seeing like every cigarette pack, like, whatever, coming through. And I get that your dad, he wasn't a stranger to tying one on now and again, and I mean, very kind of outgoing, gregarious, bigger than life personality is what I'm getting from your dad. Does that make sense?
Yes, in a certain around people that he knew. Yes.
So, see, the answer is yes.
Yes.
You're falling into a form of the no syndrome, which is over-analyzing, okay? Because here's the thing. You're one of those people that he would have been like that with. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's how he's being with you right now. Like, I feel his arms enveloping you and loving you, okay? And then this other guy's like, hey, what about me? and I'm loving him too. And he said that you make really good sandwiches. What's with you and all the sandwiches?
I mean, we used to have sandwiches a lot of times with stuff from the garden that we have. So I don't know if that's what he's referring to. Could be.
Yeah, that would make sense. So you grow stuff in the garden and then you put it into.
Yeah, we used to always have eggplant, tomato, mozzarella, arugula sandwiches. Yeah.
Let's go with a yes on that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's a safe thing.
That was a funny.
Okay.
It was a funny thing to think of, I guess. I don't know.
And he just handed you a sapphire. I had to hesitate there because I wasn't sure if it was an opal or a sapphire because it was iridescent. This is not your dad. This is the other gentleman. Is that your husband, this other guy?
It is.
Okay. He's handing you a sapphire, beautiful, beautiful sapphire, which could be a piece of jewelry with a sapphire in it of significance to you, but it's also the birthstone for the month of September, which could indicate a significant birth, death, anniversary, or event connected to you or him or someone close to you within September.
Our son's birthday is in September.
Bingo. Okay. So, interesting. It talks about your son, and he keeps showing all these antennas, electricity. Wow, it's all this frequency. Look, I know like everybody's on computers and stuff, but does your son do something with a lot of telecommunications or frequency or real high technology?
He has been doing a lot of things online with personal stuff on creating businesses online for himself. Yes.
Okay, so see, tell your son how proud his father is of him. He not only loves him, but he is very proud of him. He's very proud of him. Let's see what he has for you. Definitely you are his sunshine, his only sunshine. I love when I get that song. It's just such a sweet song. He said, even when he goes, even when I was going down the tube, she made me feel special. Aw. Now I'm getting all teary-eyed. Okay. And he's like, hey, baby, want a date? And he's throwing dates at me, like the actual fruit, a date. What is up with the dates?
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
All right. Do you like or dislike dates?
Don't really eat dates.
Okay. There's something about a date palm, a date tree, unless he used to joke around with you and go, hey, baby, how about a date? Meaning like date night. But there's something about dates, date nut bread, dates. I mean, I am just inundated with dates.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the dates.
Here's what I want you to do. First off, dates are very high in sugar. So if you are having diabetes issues, that's something you should not eat. On the other hand,
he had diabetes.
I've never diabetes. Yes,
he had diabetes.
Okay, so we know the diabetes ties in with him. When's the last time you had yourself checked for diabetes?
I have low sugar.
All right. Remember when I said that low blood
it could be high or low? Yeah.
Could be high or low. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So do you see how you got to be careful with the no syndrome? Because the reason he keeps hitting on you with sugar. Now, I do know this is that people who have low blood sugar, who are hypoglycemic, can flip and become hyperglycemic, which is diabetes. So what he's telling you is to get this checked and keep an eye on it. And I will leave that message with you. Thank you so much for letting me do this. God bless.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way,
bye-bye.
Hold on, Beth. If I don't say that he loves you, he's going to be very upset with me. He said, we got so bogged down in all the food and all the arugula, I forgot to say, honey, I love you. Okay?
I love you too.
All right. There you go. God bless
you.
Oh.
Awesome.
Thank you for calling, Beth.
Yeah, that was awesome. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
So at this point, it would still be advantageous for me to set up a reading with you, a phone reading with you at this point, even though you did a reading at this point. Is that correct?
Well, what's going to happen is...
Like wait a length of time or...
Well, the thing is, you're going to get a lot deeper messages and you're going to get a lot more people coming through. I did a reading once where I had 24 spirits come through, 21 people, 2 dogs, and Rusty the horse. So, it was like, and it was funny because when it was over, the client said, well, I had 11 brothers and sisters. Well, at least half of them were on the other side and then all these other relatives. It was really quite interesting. But generally, we're going to get at least half a dozen people coming through, and there's going to be many, many messages. But, if you want this to ruminate with you, and then you may want to schedule a reading, because we're booking, I think we're booking a couple months out now anyway. So.
Okay. Excellent. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Beth. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
All righty. Well, that was awesome. And
that was awesome.
We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for your help.
Sure. Thanks for calling. Bye, Beth.
Bye-bye.
Okay. We have one in chat, and I'm going to go ahead and ask her question, and then we're going to get a break. Well, I can't. We have 2 more that are in line, so let's go ahead and take this really quick break, and we will be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And we are back at Fate Mag Radio. It's 45 minutes after the hour, and Mark Anthony is doing readings. And we have a question in chat from Kim, who says that her mom was her best friend and hero, and maybe this is dumb, but she feels that she's around me. Is there any message for me from her? And you had told me to ask her about a broken watch or bracelet, and she said maybe broken watch.
Okay. All right. So see, the way spirits work with me is, yeah, they can say yes, but they'll give me a fact. And if there's something about a broken watch of significance between the lady, between Kim and her mother, then that's their way of saying yes. I'm also getting something on the Leo-Virgo border. So this would indicate there could be a significant birth, death, anniversary, or event between August 15th and August 30th, basically the last half of August. I get this Leo-Virgo thing, and so there could be a birth, death, anniversary, or event. It doesn't necessarily have to be with Kim's mother. It could be with someone else connected to her on this side or the other side. Is she not sure?
She's not answering yet.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and connect our next caller while we chat. Let me get back over here. And we're going to add this number. She said at this time she can't think of anything.
She will. She will. And what it is, I think it's something coming up. This year. There's something significant on the Leo-Virgo border. And spirits tend to give me astrological time frames to pinpoint something. So.
Well, apparently. I should have practiced this harder because I can't add this area code in.
Instead of doing that, let's just go ahead and take questions from the chat room.
She said her first marriage.
The Leo Virgo. the unfolding. So we all try to tune out our exes. Isn't it amazing how all of our exes are just absolutely horrible?
I just think that's they weren't when we married them, right?
That's right. So unless there's a bona fide psycho, let's wish them well on their journey in a direction away from ours.
Oh, far away. So her husband was a Leo and has passed away too.
So that means he's around.
So.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Kat. I'm not sure what we're doing. Am I doing a reading for Kim, or are you bringing someone else in? Okay.
If you could continue with Kim, I'm trying to bring someone else in while you do that.
Right, but what I'm saying is it's getting too complicated with the phone call, and we only have a few minutes left anyway. It's probably better if we stick to questions from the chat room.
Okay.
So let's see now. All I'm getting is from the Leo Virgo spirit, the gentleman. So get a lot of alcohol, and he says he really messed that one up. So it appears to me that he may have been a heavy drinker, or there was some heavy drinking involved, which caused that relationship to crash and burn. And he said that he tended to be very antagonistic and very passive aggressive in his behaviors, and he said that he's sorry.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Prescription drug problem ruined us. He's sorry, Kim. And is there more, or can we go to the next one?
Yeah, no, let's go. He's sorry. Yeah, because like I said, let's try to get to as many people as we can. Okay. Because we only have a few minutes for the show ends.
All right, Katie. Katie in chat just wants a reading. As far as I know, is there anything in particular, Katie?
Yeah, people have to realize that chat readings are extremely difficult.
I can't believe you did that well.
About frequency, and it helps when I can get their vibrational frequency from their voice. But just to say, I want a reading. It would help in the chat questions if we could focus it to a specific question, so I can get that person in.
Okay. Yeah, she said yes, just regarding the family this past year.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure what her question is. Does that mean
there was
I'm gonna have
loss?
to take a pass on this one.
Okay, just go ahead and get it boiled down. Then we have Ganada wants to know, how does one go about cleaning ancestral information that appears to be distorting a local universe? That's not really a reading.
How does one clear ancestral information that is clouding a local universe?
Mm-hmm.
How about not worrying about the ancestral information and instead focusing on yourself and your light? Because the ancestral information, that's a distraction, and it's like radio frequency interference. And so by being concerned about issues and things from the past, you're letting yesterday consume too much of today. So don't even think about it. Instead, when you meditate, focus on the white light coming through you, like a spotlight coming right down on you, and say, I'm a clear channel for God's peace, love, and light, and I ask all the distractions from the past to stay in the past.
Perfect. Okay. Now, Sherry... I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yes.
No.
Well, the earlier chat person, did she lose a brother? Because I keep getting brother. I get somebody's lost a brother. And I'm getting a male coming through that feels like he could be around 35, mid-30s, and I'm tasting a lot of blood, and I'm feeling a massive impact sensation to my right temple. I am smelling gunpowder. This would indicate a gunshot wound to the head, and it really does feel self-inflicted. So I'm not sure if anyone in the chat can identify or take that, but that's what I'm getting.
Okay. Sherry in chat wants to know, she's adopted, and she was just wondering if her maternal parents are alive still. Is that something that you can...
Yeah, and the thing is, they're only about 20 years older than her. They were really young, if they're even that. So her parents were either like late teens, early 20s. And I'm getting that they're not even together, like they're not married. This was sort of just, two ships passing in the night. And so, yeah, that's what I'm getting, that they're still here. Do we know if she was actually born was she born in Europe? Do we know?
We're waiting on her to respond.
Okay.
Yes, they were. Her dad was military.
Okay, yeah. So that's what happened. And what I'm getting is it was the best thing that could have happened to her. And it's not that they didn't love her. It's just that there was it would have been, she would have grown up in abject poverty. And so the family that raised her is the family she's supposed to have.
There you go. And Katie has specified her question. She lost her sister-in-law, and she's wondering if there is anything coming from her.
Okay. What I'm getting is the spirit coming through. I feel this deteriorating, draining sensation through my body. And it feels like a terminal illness. It feels very much like a cancerous condition. It doesn't always have to be cancer, but I'm getting a cancerous type. In other words, a draining sensation means that the passing was fairly long and slow. Does that make any sense to Katie?
This typing thing is a bear.
Yeah,
but I do know that the sister-in-law did not pass slowly.
Okay.
But another female in her family did.
Another female did. Yeah, so her mother is basically coming through. But here's the thing. We're already at the top of the hour, and these chat typing questions, it bogs down the whole process. It's better if people sign up for a reading with me through the website so that I can spend the time with them and make the proper connections and give them, messages that just go beyond identifying their loved ones. So I'll go ahead and just leave it like that tonight. And I want to thank you again, Kat, for having me on the show, and thank you for everybody's patience in the chat room. It's been an honor.
Well, it really has. Thank you so much, Mark. I have enjoyed every minute of our conversation. You've just been great.
Thank you.
And if you ever want to come back, we've got a place for you. Anytime.
All right, thank you.
And that being said, this has been a really tough bit of a week. And, for a lot of people. It's not something that's just easy for this world to be getting through, and everybody's trying so hard. Be kind to yourself. It's okay to take time out for you, and it's important. It really is. Everybody's fussing. Everybody's so concerned and scared and whatever. But if you are unhappy with what you're seeing, then be the change. It's not that hard. You can manifest and build the positivity in you, and then you can just share that with others. Be the friend that you would like to have. Be the person in line somewhere and treat the others around you the way you would like to be treated. It's just the little things. And every one of us have the power to change our own environment. And it's not hard. Just go out and do that. Be the person that matters to you. And I try to do that. Some days it's easier than others. And when Mark was talking about meditation, kind of focusing yourself and getting your energy and your communication right, then it's really important to do that. I think that my life altered when I started, and I think Mark's did too, if I'm not mistaken. And we have had so many people to say thank you. This show is about Mark and his abilities and his writings. Be sure you check out his books. If you're going through a hard time, find a way out. I love every one of y'all. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that we will see you next time. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.